A few weeks ago, a friend of mine from Columbus came up to visit me for lunch, and in the midst of the lunch, she asked me a question. She said, "What's your favorite thing to do as a priest?" There's a lot of things I love as a priest. I love hearing confessions. I love giving talks. I love helping out with retreats. I love celebrating Mass. One of the things that I really, really love, though, this was my answer, I said, was preparing couples for marriage and then getting to celebrate their weddings. Part of the reason is every wedding I get to celebrate, it's like a renewal of my own priestly heart and a reminder of what it was that claimed my whole life and brought me down to that marble floor of the cathedral. You know, Jesus calls a man to the priesthood not because that man isn't attracted to or longing for marriage or family life. That Jesus calls a man away from those goods, those incredible goods, in order to give him something really precious, namely, like his own bride. That priesthood is a nuptial mystery, meaning it's a real engagement in a man's heart and desire to be given away as a gift, right? All of that longing and passion and energy that a man feels, a young man feels, to lay down his life to be a groom, it's the same thing that a man feels when he gives his life away to the church with Jesus as a priest. So I was sharing with this friend how every single wedding I see these couples, I prepared them, I've walked with them, and I've got this vantage point as a priest that I'm standing there with my back to the altar, and there's the groom right in front of me, and I get to see what the groom sees, which is I get to see the bride walk down the aisle. But what's significant as a priest is she's not looking at me, right? She's looking at him. And it can awaken in the heart an ache, to be sure, an awareness of what you gave up. I have surrendered to Jesus the opportunity to have someone walk down the aisle with that light in her eyes for me. Like, as a priest, I'll never have that. But then there's this moment where she greets him, she's right there, and then they turn, and then they face you as the priest, right? You who are standing in the presence of Jesus, the bridegroom, and they, as members of the laity, the congregation, are the bride. I'm bringing all this up because one of the things that I'm thinking a lot about these days is the numbers of men who are answering the call. So a few weeks ago, we had our priest convocation, and one of the things that we were looking at were the sobering numbers, the statistics, the guys who are retiring, the number of parishes we have, and the guys who are coming up to fill the ranks behind them, and there's just not enough. We just don't have enough men. There aren't enough men. And I think part of the reason why there aren't enough men is because a lot of men who maybe feel the stirrings of a vocational call only look at what they're giving up. Gosh, I know that was what I was looking at when I was in high school. I was a junior in senior high school, and I began feeling this stirring for the priesthood to think about seminary. All I could think about was what I'd be giving up, what I'd be saying no to, what I wouldn't have. Somehow I did make it into the seminary, and as you go along, what you slowly begin to discover is the no of celibacy is the only thing that opens up the possibility for the even greater yes. The no is what makes possible the ability to receive the gift that Jesus wants to give you as a celibate priest, which is you get to love his bride. I'm talking to the young men. I'm talking to you parents with sons. I'm talking to you grandparents with grandsons. We need to realize in the church that the priesthood is a real engagement with the real deep desires of the masculine heart, which is to be espoused and to be a dad. Like, what do we call priests? You call them father. And that's not because it's like a pity. It's not saying, oh, well, they don't have kids, we should just call them father. No, it's because it's a real fatherhood. It's spiritual fatherhood, which is a participation in God's fatherhood. And you're a spouse. You lay your life down for the bride. You have a bride. The priests are not ordained bachelors. I know there are priests who live that way, but that's not what we are called to be. I'm not an ordained bachelor. I am espoused. My life is claimed and given. It's a real engagement with those desires. So young men, if the Lord is stirring a desire, a curiosity for the priesthood in you, do not listen to the enemy who's going to say, just look at what you're going to give up. Just look at the no. I can't even begin to tell you how beautiful and exquisite the yes is. There are days where I feel like I have to pinch myself because this vocation is so absolutely incredible. We need more priests. We need more priests. Who's going to give the sacraments to the next generation? Who's going to stand at the altar and offer the body and blood of our Lord for the salvation of the world? Who's going to hear confessions for the next generation? Who's going to baptize the infants? Who's going to bring home the dying? Who's going to do it if not the priests? We have to recognize that Jesus, when he calls a man to the priesthood, to think about the priesthood, to think about discernment, he's saying, I actually want to give you an incredible gift. It's the pearl of great price that's worth selling everything for.